All right, we're going to talk about segment and angle addition, and we are going to talk about them side by side because you do them identically. They're exactly the same thing, they just look a little bit different. The formula, and there's no real formula, but it's the way that I look at it. The formula would be piece plus piece equals whole, which is true. If you take two pieces of something, it equals the whole thing when you put them together. So that's kind of why it works. If I take my pen, this segment, and then I add to it another segment, that's the whole thing. Okay, now we have this really long, you can't see it either way, turn it, whole segment. So if you think about it, when you look at this first example, we would know that 8 plus whatever this is has to be 13. These arrows and lines show that it's the whole length. So I'm just going to name this x because it's easier to do that way, and write 8 plus x equals 13. And then to solve that, you just obviously subtract 8 from both sides, and x equals 5. And we know that 8 plus 5 is 13, so we definitely did that right. That's as simple as it gets. Okay. This is angle addition. It's the same thing, but a lot of the time you're going to have to kind of put the stuff into the picture. So I'll show you how I write that so that hopefully it can keep you straight. Angle NCB, that's one of them, but we don't know what that is because it tells us to find it. We want to find that angle if DCB, the whole thing, is 110 degrees, and DCN is 30 degrees. Now, depending on the order that you did these stations, you might have learned that these two angles are adjacent because they share a side. All right, we don't know what this one is. It's the one we want to know. So we're going to call it X, and then write 30 plus X equals 110. Or you could do X plus 30 equals 110. That doesn't matter. So we'll subtract 30 from both sides. X equals, let's see, minus 10 would be 100, minus 20 would be 80 degrees. So angle NCB is 80 degrees. All right, no algebra involved there, just angles. And here's where the algebra comes in. We know that piece plus piece equals the whole thing. So we can do 11 plus 2x plus 24 equals x plus 26. Okay, we want to combine like terms on this side, so 2x plus 35 equals x plus 26. And then start moving stuff around. I'm going to subtract x here. X plus 35 equals 26, and then subtract. X equals negative 9. Now I'd like to point out that x, it's okay to be negative if x is negative, but it's not okay for an angle or a segment length to be negative. So if we plugged negative 9 back in, 2 times negative 9 plus 24, and we got a negative here for this length, that would be a problem. But because it's not talking about length, x is just a value that works just like this, and it's asking for x, so we're done. Okay. The next one says the measure of BCH right here is 50x. The measure of HCD is 65. And the measure of the whole thing, BCD, is 81x plus 3. Piece plus piece equals whole. So 50x plus 65 would equal the whole thing, 81x plus 3. And then solve. I like to move my x's first, but it doesn't matter. And remember, if this part is going too fast because I'm just kind of solving it because you have the ability to pause. So if it's going too fast, just pause it at each step. And then divide by 31. 2 equals x. I'm circling that because that's what it asked us to find, x. So if that went too fast, go back, pause, watch the steps. Piece plus piece equals whole. The only difference between these two is that it's asking us to plug it back in the end. So we know piece plus piece equals whole. 12 plus 2x minus 7 equals the whole thing, x plus 14. We need to solve that, so combine like terms. 2x plus 5 equals x plus 14. I'm going to subtract my x. And then subtract 5. And then we have x, which is great, except they want us to tell the measure of jk. jk is this piece right there. So we're going to plug in. So we're going to say jk equals 2x minus 7, and x is 9. So we're going to take the 9 and plug it in for the x. 2 times 9 minus 7, 18 minus 7 is 11. So jk is 11. And that's the only difference. The last ones we solved for x and we're done, but the directions changed and now we need to solve for jk. All right, and the same thing but with an angle. QRJ is the one we're looking for. It is represented by 33x. JRS is represented by 72, and the whole angle is 58x minus 3. Piece plus piece equals whole. So 33x plus 72 equals 58x minus 3. Okay, so we need to move our stuff around. I'm going to start by subtracting 33x. And then adding 3 to the other side. And the last step for that would be to divide by 25. Now I'm not going to circle that because the instructions said find the measure of QRJ. In our diagram, QRJ is represented, angle QRJ is 33x. So we're going to take our 3 and plug it in for x. So angle QRJ is 99 degrees. I hope you're kind of seeing a pattern. We're going to do 2 more that have one thing more specific about them, and then that's it for this part. This is where it gets to be one step more because you need to decide what's important. If you don't read this, you'll be like, well, piece plus piece, but what's the whole thing? Right? We have nothing to tell us how long the whole thing is in the diagram. But here it says that T is the midpoint of SU. Well, we learned that midpoint means it cuts it in half. So that means that this piece and this piece have to actually be equal to each other because of the word midpoint. So instead of adding them together, we're actually going to make them equal to each other because they are. So 8x plus 11 equals 12x minus 1. Do you see the difference? All right, and then we'll solve. Again, you can pause to slow this down. I just am going faster on the algebra part. So x is 3, and it asked for x, so we don't need to plug that in. All right, so that's the difference in if it's a midpoint, and we have a similar situation right here. BD bisects angle ABC. Well, what does bisect mean? It means it was cut in half. So this and that are equal. They're congruent. We know that d